Amarawa ho'opa. Thank you for joining us and happy summer solstice. A group of investors is asking the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission to consider Indigenous people when enforcing rules on climate change. ICT's editor-at-large Mark Trahant has the story, which is part of his year-long series on Indigenous economics.
Investors have been demanding that companies and mutual funds have a climate change plan. And now, federal regulators are saying it must back up that plan with action. But is that enough? More than 120 investors say no. A letter to the SEC said the rights of Indigenous people must also be considered because they are risks to investors that result in significant losses. The protests over the Dakota Access Pipeline near Standing Rock tripled costs of that project to more than $12 billion. And Energy Transfer Partners ended up with a long-time decline in the company value. Potential risk for investors arises from the failure to identify, assess, and manage Indigenous rights risk, notes the letter. But the best way to limit these risks is to align with the UN principle of free, prior, and informed consent. The current SEC proposal does not reference Indigenous people, and Kate Finn Osage from First Peoples Worldwide calls that a missed opportunity so that investors can gauge how Indigenous people fit into the risk of mining or energy development. The SEC's comment period for climate-related disclosures ended Friday. In Phoenix, Mark Trahant, ICT Newscast.
Now to highlight a robotics team from the Cherokee Nation that took its talents all the way to the World Championship. The team from Oklahoma was one of several representatives at the VEX Robotics Tournament held last month in Dallas, Texas. To qualify, the 5th, 7th, and 8th graders took part in the state competition, placing second. In May, the young bright minds represented their small community on a big stage, with many of their competitors coming from different places around the world. One of their tasks was to score points by programming their robots to complete a series of tasks. The team competed in the middle school division among 78 teams and ranked number 42 at the end of the 3-day tournament. Congratulations to the entire team and great job. While Nunavik is experiencing some of the most dramatic effects of climate change, the northern Canadian region's main power source includes diesel-powered generators. Now, Inuit are looking to harness untapped solar and wind power. APTN's Amelia Fournier reports.
Who better than the Inuit of Nunavik and the Inuit of the world to take on that lead? Because we have the most to lose, and we're losing the most.
Nunavik is experiencing the most dramatic effects of climate change, but the region relies on diesel fuel as a power source. Now, Inuit are looking to harness the land's untapped solar and wind power.
If we're giving the message that global warming is happening like Sheila has been doing, then we have to practice what we're telling the world by going into clean energy.
Inuit-owned and operated Tarkuti Energy Corporation will develop renewable energy projects in collaboration with local co-ops, and Hydro-Québec will distribute the power.
All of these connections of trying to be creative and innovative is really important.
Sheila Watt-Cloutier is an Inuit ecological activist who is helping Tarkuti find solutions and communicate with communities.
If we can take ownership and feel like, oh, we're in control here, and we're doing something not only to protect our land and our waters, but we're also doing something for the entire planet, because the Arctic's ice serves as the air conditioner, and it's breaking down.
Tarkuti is a joint venture between Makavik Corporation and Fédération des Coopératives du Nouveau-Québec, two main economic development organizations in Nunavik. Makavik President Pita Atami says the corporation is set up to benefit Inuit.
We're not there to try to make money. We just want to have clean energy. And whatever money that we make, we're going to give it right to the community where the energy is being produced.
While this renewable energy will flow through Hydro-Québec's grid and the company will collect user fees, Hydro-Québec President and CEO Sophie Brochu says they'll only play a supporting role.
We're here to help, not to tell the people what to do. We're going to provide our expertise. At the end of the day, it will be their call.
Tarkuti is still measuring wind data and figuring out logistical issues of transporting equipment and storing solar energy. So there is no set date for when Inuit will have access to renewable energy. But Watt-Cloutier is optimistic about the effect this will have on generations to come.
This is the opening, I think, that's going to lend itself out to different innovative, imaginative, sustainable activities in our region.
Emilia Fournier, APTN National News, Montreal.
An iconic building connected to the history of Indigenous people in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is finally being renovated. The Minneapolis American Indian Center closed this month. It is being prepared for its first major million-dollar renovation in its 47-year history. The massive project has already secured $25 million, and it will need an additional $5 million to complete the renovations. Over the past year, water dripping from the roof has become a steady stream. And while a leaky roof demands quick attention, the call to renovate goes back to 2013. That year, Ojibwe citizen Mary Lagarde pivoted from being the center's grant writer to its interim director, a role she now holds permanently.
Just looking at the building, putting the buckets out, when it rains, it definitely, we knew that for years, we knew that the Indian Center needed some attention to it. And so it was in 2013 when we really started this process.
Phase 1 of the center's renovation is scheduled to be completed by summer of 2025.